This is a cybersecurity story that's been unfolding since 2017. It's like something out of a horror movie, but it's not a movie. It's happening right now in real life. This story isn't about some skids. They are professional, smart, and sinister cyber attackers that you probably haven't heard about. They're what we call an Advanced Persistent Threat, or APT. Think of them like digital special forces, highly skilled, well-funded, and relentless in their missions. Now, this particular group goes by a bunch of different names. In the cybersecurity world, they're known as Pioneer Kitten, Fox Kitten, UNC 757, Parasite, Rubidium, and Lemon Sandstorm. Since 2017, these guys have been hammering away at US organizations. We're talking a massive number of attempts to break into networks. And they've had some scary successes too. They've managed to compromise schools, city governments, banks, and even healthcare facilities across the United States. So, yeah, this isn't just random hacking. These state-sponsored threats are a whole different ballgame compared to your average cybercriminal. They've got resources, they've got time, and they've got specific targets in mind. The scary part? They're still active as of August 2024. 7 years of continuous attacks from these hackers. They're laying siege to America, probing for any weakness they can exploit. Let's dive deep into the world of Pioneer Kitten and unravel their hacking operations. All right. So in 2017, the world's focused on other stuff, but behind the scenes, something big was brewing deep within the internet. These guys, they just pop up out of nowhere, but they're not messing around. They start hammering away at organizations like it's their day job. And get this, it pretty much is their day job. Now, when I say they're targeting organizations, I'm not talking about a couple of attempts here and there. They produced a high volume of computer network intrusion attempts. Basically, they were trying to break into everything, everywhere, all the time. Where it gets interesting is that the FBI, yeah, the actual Federal Bureau of Investigation, they look into this group. And what do they find? These aren't just some random hackers. No. The FBI says these guys are working for the Iranian government. Think of it like this. If your computer network is a house, these guys are trying every window, every door, looking for any way in. And they're not just trying one house. They're going door to door down the whole street. Not just any guys, mind you, a massive coordinated effort, backed with the full force of the Iranian government. The scary part? This is just the beginning. These Pioneer Kitten guys, they're just getting started in 2017. They're laying the groundwork for something much bigger. But we'll get to that. For now, a group of highly skilled hackers, backed by a national government, targeting organizations across multiple sectors. Schools, hospitals, banks. Nobody's off limits. And they're doing it day in, day out. For years. That's the kind of persistent threat we're dealing with here. All right, let's dive into the inner workings of what Pioneer Kitten was up to in 2019 and 2020. This is where things get really technical, so strap in. These guys started focusing on vulnerability exploitation in public-facing networking devices and VPNs. We're talking about critical infrastructure here. The devices that connect entire organizations to the internet and allow remote access. One of their main targets was the Citrix NetScaler, now known as Citrix ADC. Now, Citrix NetScaler is this application delivery controller that a lot of big organizations use to manage their network traffic. They exploited a vulnerability labeled CVE 2019-19781. This was a directory traversal bug that allowed unauthenticated remote attackers to execute arbitrary code on the system. In normal use, you'd need proper credentials to access these systems. But this exploit? It was like having a master key. Once they got in, their post-exploitation activities were pretty sophisticated. First, they'd deploy web shells. These are malicious scripts that provide a web-based interface to the compromised system. It's not like normal admin tools that are built with security in mind. These web shells allow attackers to execute commands, upload and download files, and maintain persistent access, all while bypassing normal authentication mechanisms. Then, they'd start capturing credentials. They were using these web shells to grab login credentials and store them in a file named netscaler.1. This isn't just casual snooping, it's systematic theft of authentication data. With these credentials, they could move laterally through the network, accessing more systems and data than they should ever be able to reach. But they didn't stop there. They also created new accounts on the victim networks. We're talking about accounts like SQLadmin $ADFS service and IISadmin. In a normal scenario, creating new admin accounts would require high-level permissions and would be logged and monitored. But by exploiting these vulnerabilities, they could create these accounts undetected, giving themselves persistent, privileged access to the systems. They even made one account called John McCain. I mean, come on, that's just adding insult to injury. It's not about getting in once, it's about ensuring you can come back whenever you want, however you want. And Pioneer Kitten was doing this at scale. So by 2020, Pioneer Kitten wasn't just some random group of hackers anymore. They had evolved into a sophisticated, persistent threat. They weren't just stealing data, they were setting up long-term operations, burrowing deep into these networks. This wasn't just data theft, it was potentially setting the stage for large-scale disruption or espionage. This is the point where cybersecurity experts around the world started to really sit up and take notice. Because Pioneer Kitten, they weren't playing around anymore. They were in it for the long haul, and they were only getting started. In late 2020, these guys kicked off something called the Pay-to-Key campaign. Now, this wasn't just your ordinary kind of hacking. This was what we call a hack and leak operation, and it was aimed squarely at Israeli organizations. First, they'd break into these networks and steal a bunch of sensitive data. But instead of just quietly selling it off, they decided to go public. They set up this website on what's called the dark web, specifically an onion site. An onion site is a special kind of website that you can only access through something called the Tor browser. It's designed for anonymity, making it really hard to trace who's running the site. What's really interesting is how they set this up. They didn't just rent some anonymous server. No, they used cloud infrastructure that belonged to an organization they had previously hacked. This allowed them to hide behind their victims and even make their malicious activity look like legitimate traffic. Once they had all this stolen data, they didn't just dump it online. They turned it into a publicity stunt. They'd go on social media, tagging the victims and media organizations, basically saying, "Hey, look what we've got." Then they'd leak the stolen data on their .onion site. To Pioneer Kitten, it's not just about stealing data, it's about using that data to create chaos, embarrass targets, and potentially influence public opinion. But this isn't the end of it. These guys weren't content with just hacking and leaking. They also started selling access to the networks they'd compromised on underground forums. This is a whole other level of malicious activity. They were opening the door for other criminals to come in and do even more damage. From a technical standpoint, this expansion of activities demonstrates a significant evolution in Pioneer Kitten's capabilities and objectives. They've moved from simple network intrusion and data theft to sophisticated multi-stage operations. These kinds of operations require a high level of organization and resources, which aligns with their suspected state sponsorship with the Iranian government. All of this paints a picture of a threat actor that's not just capable, but also dangerous. They're not just causing damage. They're weaponizing information and turning their compromises into a source of ongoing revenue. And remember, this is all happening while they're continuing their other operations. It was the biggest escalation of threat observed yet. All right, folks, we're diving into 2022 now, and let me tell you, things are getting wild with Pioneer Kitten. They're not just sticking to their old tricks anymore, they're expanding their arsenal, and it's pretty intense. They start exploiting this vulnerability in F5 Big IP devices. Now, for those who don't know, Big IP is a suite of products used for application delivery networking. It's like the traffic cop for data in big networks. These devices are usually maintained by cybersecurity defenders of an organization's network. Basically, if the hackers get their hands on this, it would be one of the worst-case scenarios. Anyway, the vulnerability they're exploiting is called CVE 2022-1388. This vulnerability is serious business. It allows an unauthenticated attacker to execute system commands, create or delete files, or disable services on the Big IP system. In normal operation, you'd need to be an authenticated administrator to do any of this stuff. But with this exploit, they can just take full control of it. The exploit was like the equivalent of leaving the keys to your house under the doormat. Once they're in, they start disabling antivirus and security software. They're using administrator credentials to do this, which they've likely stolen earlier. They're also lowering PowerShell policies to a less secure level. PowerShell is a powerful tool for system administration, but it can also be used by attackers if not properly secured. By lowering these policies, they're making it easier for themselves to run malicious scripts without the system preventing them. They were also installing remote access tools. They're using programs like AnyDesk and Mesh Central. These are legitimate tools used by IT professionals for remote support. But in the hands of Pioneer Kitten, they become a back door into the system. It's like they're installing their own secret entrance that lets them come and go as they please. Not only this, but they're also using these open source tunneling tools, Ligolo and NGROKey. These tools create outbound connections to random subdomains. This is super sneaky because most firewalls are set up to block incoming connections, not outgoing ones. By using these tools, they can maintain access to the system even if the normal ways in are blocked. Now, why is all of this so bad? Well, it's all about persistence and stealth. They're not just breaking in, stealing some data, and leaving. They're setting up shop, making sure they can come back whenever they want, and making it really hard for the cybersecurity defenders to detect them or kick them out. They're not just exploiting vulnerabilities anymore. They're using advanced techniques to stay hidden and maintain long-term access. It's like they've gone from being burglars to being invisible, permanent house guests that you can't get rid of. And remember, this isn't just happening to one or two companies. Intel suggests this is a widespread global attack. We're now diving into what they did in 2023 and early 2024. So, what's their game plan now? Well, they started exploiting some new vulnerabilities. First up, we've got CVE 2023-3519, which affected Citrix NetScaler, which by now had been renamed to Citrix ADC. This vulnerability, similar to the previous one they were exploiting, was particularly nasty because it allows for remote code execution without authentication. That means these hackers could again run whatever commands they want on the system without even needing a password. But they're not stopping there. They're also hitting Pulse Secure and Ivanti VPNs with CVE 2024-21887. VPNs, or Virtual Private Networks, are supposed to be secure tunnels for remote access to an organization's network. But this vulnerability turns that secure tunnel into a wide open door. They weren't just targeting any old organizations. They're going after US-based schools, municipal governments, financial institutions, and healthcare facilities. We're talking about the systems that run our cities, handle our money, and keep our hospitals operating. They had a primary focus on organizations in the United States for some reason. This is serious. But wait, remember how I mentioned Intel suggests their attacks were running global? Well, I wasn't lying. The FBI has found that these guys are also running espionage operations, targeting defense networks in Israel, Azerbaijan, and the United Arab Emirates. This isn't just about making money or causing chaos. It sounds like they're after the world's most sensitive information. From a technical standpoint, this requires reconnaissance, planning, and a deep understanding of the systems they're attacking. If they use their knowledge for good, they could create the most secure network the world has ever seen. But instead, they are using it for chaos. The use of multiple vulnerabilities across different types of systems shows a broad and adaptable skill set. They're not relying on just one trick. They've got a whole toolkit at their disposal, which alone may not be that bad, but putting them all together to pull off their insane attacks. It's not just about immediate damage, it's about long-term intelligence gathering. They're looking for information that could give Iran a strategic advantage. By now, you surely can see how this paints a picture of a highly skilled, well-resourced threat actor with specific geopolitical goals. This was calculated state-level cyber operations aimed at some of the most critical targets in the US and its allies. But as you will soon see, Pioneer Kitten wasn't finished just yet. So, these guys who've been running sophisticated espionage operations for years now, they've decided they want a little more. They up the ante and team up with some of the nastiest ransomware gangs out there. We're talking No Escape, Ransom House, and Alpha, also known as Black Cat. This is like the Avengers of cybercrime. The FBI uncovered that these guys aren't just selling access to networks they've hacked. No, they're getting their hands dirty in the ransomware operations themselves. They're actively involved in locking down victim networks and strategizing on how to squeeze the most money out of their targets. Ransomware as a service is this business model where ransomware developers lease out their malicious software to affiliates. These affiliates do the dirty work of infecting systems and negotiating ransoms, then split the profits with the developers. It's a sick and twisted business model. Pioneer Kitten are bringing something new to the table, though. They've got years of experience in breaking into high-value networks. So they're not just providing access, they're offering expertise in how to navigate these complex systems, where to hit to cause the most damage, and how to avoid detection. Again, using their elite skill set for the worst attacks imaginable, all while still running their espionage operations. It's like they're playing both sides of the field, and doing it with style. Now let's talk about TOX identifiers. These are unique addresses used on the TOX network, a peer-to-peer instant messaging protocol that's popular among cyber criminals because it's encrypted and decentralized. The handles or usernames associated with our Iranian cyber group are XPL Finder and Broker. Then we've got Admin Alpha, that's Black Cat, Americano Sneakers, Admin No Escape, and BetterSock. These are the ransomware affiliates they're working with. These identifiers are like secret handshakes in the hacking underground. When you see one of these pop up in a chat room or on a dark web forum, you know you're dealing with the big leagues. What's fascinating is how this collaboration blurs the lines between state-sponsored actors and profit-driven cybercriminals. Are they doing this for the money? For the intel? Both. Maybe some of the hackers inside the Pioneer Kitten group had dabbled in criminal ransomware operations during their early days, got recruited by Iran's hacking unit and couldn't let go of their past, used it to their advantage. Who knows? Either way, this sinister connection is startling at the least. It's a strategic move that allows them to cause maximum disruption, generate insane revenue, and gather valuable intelligence. It's a triple threat. The scariest part is, who knows what other collaborations are happening on the dark web that we just haven't uncovered yet. As recent as July 2024, the Pioneer Kitten crew is still out there, causing havoc. But now, we're going to deep dive on who these guys are and how they operate. In July, they were caught scanning IP addresses of checkpoint security gateways. These are high-end firewall devices used by big organizations to protect their networks. The hackers are looking for a specific vulnerability, CVE 2024-24919. This is what we call a zero-day, a security flaw that the good guys haven't had time to patch yet. Just a couple months prior, back in April, they were doing the same thing with Palo Alto Networks devices, another big name in network security. They're probing for a vulnerability called CVE 2024-3400 in PAN-OS and Global Protect VPN devices. This is so dangerous. These devices are your first line of defense. By exploiting vulnerabilities in them, Pioneer Kitten can potentially bypass all the usual security measures and gain direct access to the internal network. It's like finding a secret passage that bypasses all your security measures. Trust me, you don't want them to find this. But we've uncovered the group's cover company. They're using this business, an Iranian business. Its name sounds like a person, but it's Danesh Novin Sahand. They are using a legitimate-looking business as a front for their cyber operations. We've also got their online nicknames. As we mentioned before, they're going by Broker and XPL Finder in their communications channels. This is crucial for tracking their activities across different platforms and forums. As for their hacking infrastructure, we've identified a specific IP address they're using. This address was first seen in January 2024 and was still active as of August 2024. They're also using two domain names. The first one has been around since September 2022, while the other popped up in February 2024. This information is gold for cybersecurity professionals. It allows them to set up defenses and monitoring specifically tailored to catch them. It's like knowing the license plate of a getaway car. We can set up checkpoints to catch them. In August 2024, the big guns came out swinging. We're talking about a joint advisory from the FBI, CISA, and the DoD Cybercrime Center. Now, when these three team up, you know it's serious business. They're not just putting out a warning, they're sounding the alarm bells for network defenders across the country. The FBI released what we call indicators of compromise. These are like digital fingerprints that the hackers leave behind. We're talking IP addresses, domain names, even cryptocurrency wallet addresses. This is gold for cybersecurity analysts and network defenders. They can add them to their blacklists or look through logs to see if their network has ever seen or communicated with them. The advice given is simply this: patch vulnerabilities. This is crucial. Remember all those exploits we talked about earlier? Well, most of them have patches available. If you don't patch, consider yourself already hacked and all your data gone. Review logs for suspicious activities. This is all about vigilance. Logs are like footprints. By reviewing them regularly, you might catch signs of an intrusion before it becomes a full-blown breach. Implement various security controls. This is a broad category, but it's essential. We're talking about things like multi-factor authentication, network segmentation, and robust access controls. It's about making it harder for the bad guys to move around, even if they do get in. Now, let's talk about threat intelligence sharing. This advisory is a prime example of it. By pooling information from multiple agencies, we get a more complete picture of the threat. It's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Each agency might have a piece, but together they can see the whole picture. Despite all this, despite 7 years of investigations, Pioneer Kitten, our Iranian hacker group, is still out there, still active, and still causing havoc. They're a threat actor that's evolved and expanded over 7 years and shows no signs of slowing down. In the world of cybersecurity, there's no finish line. The game never ends. So keep your systems updated and never underestimate the persistence of these threat actors. Because as long as there are valuable targets out there, money to steal, secrets to be unlocked, groups like Pioneer Kitten will find your network, they will find any holes, and if history repeats itself well, they will succeed. Leave a comment if this is the first time you've ever heard of Pioneer Kitten. As always, stick around if you want to know the real truth about cybersecurity. Rewind back to 2011, and deep within the hacking underworld, a new threat was emerging. Enter Maxim Silnikow, a hacker known by many aliases, including JP Morgan, not to be confused with the famous banker. Maxim Silnikow isn't interested in Wall Street. His playground is the dark corners of the internet. Now, imagine you're sitting at your computer, maybe checking your email or browsing social media. Suddenly, your screen freezes. A message pops up claiming to be from the FBI or another law enforcement agency. It accuses you of downloading illegal content, child abuse material, or pirated software. Your heart races. The message says your computer is locked and you need to pay a fine to regain access. This, my friends, is Reviton, the brainchild of Maxim Silnikow and his associates. It's not just any old computer virus, it's what we call police locker ransomware. Think of it like a digital kidnapper holding your computer hostage and demanding a ransom. But here's where it gets really creepy. Reviton doesn't just lock your screen. It can actually access your webcam, snapping a photo of you in your moment of panic. Imagine seeing your own confused face staring back at you from this fake police message. It's a psychological trick, making the threat feel even more real and personal. Now you might be wondering, how does a scam like this actually work? Well, Silnikow and his crew set up a system that's pretty clever in a criminal sort of way. They called it ransomware as a service. Basically, it's like a twisted version of a software subscription service. Other cybercriminals could buy access to Reviton, customize it, and use it in their own attacks. Silnikow and his team would then take a cut of the profits. And profitable it was. From 2012 to 2014, this scam was raking in about $400,000 every single month. That's not chump change. We're talking millions of dollars a year from frightened people trying to unlock their computers. The victims, caught in this digital trap, were told to pay using services like MoneyPack or Pay Safecard. These are prepaid money transfer services, often used by people who don't have bank accounts. They're also perfect for cybercriminals because the transactions are hard to trace. So there you have it, the birth of Reviton. It wasn't just a computer virus, it was the start of a criminal empire. Silnicow had found a way to scale up cybercrime, turning ransomware into a service that other criminals could easily use. It was a dark innovation that would set the stage for even more sophisticated attacks in the years to come. But Silnicow and his crew were still hungry, so they started cooking up something new. You see, they're not content with just locking up computers anymore. They wanted to go even further. Enter the Angler Exploit Kit, or AEK for short. Now you might be wondering, what the heck is this exploit kit? Think of it like a Swiss Army knife for hackers. It's a toolkit that searches for weak spots in your computer's defenses. And let me tell you, Angler was the Rolls-Royce of exploit kits. Here's how it worked. Imagine you're browsing the web, maybe checking out your favorite news site, or looking up a recipe. Suddenly, without you even noticing, you're redirected to a malicious website. This is where Angler comes into play. It starts probing your system, looking for any outdated software. Adobe Flash, Java, Silverlight, Internet Explorer. If you haven't updated these, you're in trouble. Angler was like a master lockpicker. It tried a wide range of different keys until it found one that fit. Once it did, boom! It could deliver any kind of malware the attackers wanted, ransomware, keyloggers, you name it. Silnicow and his team didn't just create this tool, they turned it into a business. They started renting out Angler to other cybercriminals. It's like they opened up a Home Depot for hackers, and business was booming. They employed some sophisticated techniques, something called obfuscation. Basically, they scrambled their code to make it hard for security researchers to figure out what was going on. They also used encryption, wrapping their malicious payload in a digital safe that was tough to crack. There's more though. They used a technique called domain shadowing. They'd hijack legitimate domains to host their malware and create multiple subdomains without changing the original DNS records. This made it really difficult to detect, since people only really check the main domain name. Now Silnicow wasn't working alone. He collaborated with other cybercriminals, including a guy named Zain Kaiser. They were two formidable threats. As Angler evolved, it became a serious problem. From 2013 to 2016, it was the go-to tool for many cybercriminals. Millions of computers were at risk, and law enforcement and network defenders just couldn't keep up. But here's the thing about cybersecurity. People are always watching, always learning, and as Angler grew more powerful, it also grew more notorious. The hunt was on, and law enforcement agencies around the world were starting to connect the dots. Silnicow and his crew had built an impressive operation, but they'd also painted a massive target on their backs. The question was, could they stay one step ahead of the law? Or was their luck about to run out? So there I was, thinking I had seen it all with Silnicow's Angler exploit kit. But this story is like an onion. There are layers upon layers of cybercrime genius here, and let me tell you, what came next demonstrated their dedication and skills to the game. While cybersecurity firms are racing to understand and defend against the Angler exploit kit, Silnicow and his crew, again, are moving on to their next big scheme. Enter the world of malvertising. Now, imagine if those annoying pop-up ads you see online weren't just trying to sell you stuff, but were actually trying to infect your computer. Well, this isn't so uncommon to frequent internet users. But yes, that's malvertising in a nutshell. Silnikau teamed up with two other guys, Volodymyr Kadaria and Andrei Tarasov. Together, they formed a kind of cybercrime dream team. These guys weren't just script kiddies messing around in their basements. They were running a sophisticated operation that lasted nearly a decade, all the way up until 2022. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. They developed something called traffic direction systems. Think of these like evil traffic cops for the internet. Instead of directing cars, they're directing internet users to malicious websites. It's like you're driving down the highway and these traffic direction systems are putting up fake detour signs that lead you straight into internet hell. It was also found that they used something called counter antivirus services. You know how you run antivirus scans on your computer to check for malware? Well, these guys were doing the opposite. They were using these services to test their malware, making sure it could slip past antivirus software undetected. And to top it all off, they used cryptocurrency mixers to hide the trail of their ill-gotten gains. It was money laundering at its finest. I want you to grasp the full entirety of Maxim Silnikau's campaign. This wasn't just some simple operation. This was a full-blown malvertising empire that targeted millions of internet users worldwide. For nearly a decade, every time you clicked on an ad, you might have been unknowingly participating in one of the biggest cybercrime schemes in history. The scariest part? This went on for years before anyone caught on. It just goes to show, in the world of cybercrime, the bad guys can always be one step ahead. And in this case, they were several steps ahead, running circles around law enforcement for the better part of a decade. As cybersecurity firms were still grappling with this and trying to come to terms with it, Silnikau and his crew had already moved on to bigger and badder things. They weren't just hackers anymore. They had become cyber kingpins, ruling over a vast empire that was full of deception. How long could they keep this going before the law caught up with them? Let's talk about something that we've all experienced. Those annoying pop-up ads that seem to follow us around the internet. You know the ones I'm talking about, right? Well, imagine you were browsing the web, maybe checking out some cute cat videos or looking up a recipe for dinner. Suddenly, a pop-up appears. Warning! It screams in big red letters. Your computer is infected with a virus. Your heart starts racing. Is it true? Is your computer in danger? This is what we call scareware. It's not just annoying, it's downright manipulative. And Silnikau and his gang turned it into an art form. Here's how it worked. They'd create these fake ads that looked legit, sometimes even mimicking well-known antivirus software. The ads would claim your device was infected or at risk. And here comes the clever part. They'd offer a solution. Click here to download our antivirus software. Or enter your credit card details to clean your device. But here's the thing. There was no virus, at least not until you clicked on their solution. That's when the real trouble started. You might end up downloading actual malware, or worse, handing over your personal information or credit card details to these cyber criminals. Now you might be thinking, come on, who falls for that? Well, more people than you'd think. These guys were masters of social engineering, manipulating people's emotions and trust to get them to do what you want. Fear is a powerful motivator, and these scareware ads played on that fear extremely well. They didn't just stop at virus warnings either. Sometimes the ads would claim your computer was running slow and needed optimization, or that your drivers were out of date, or even that your Windows license had expired. Anything to get you to click that button or enter some credit card information. And the impact? It was huge. millions of unsuspecting internet users across the United States and beyond fell victim to these scams. We're talking about regular people just like you and me, just trying to navigate the internet, suddenly finding themselves with infected computers or emptied bank accounts. It was the sense of urgency that led to a lapse in judgment for these victims. As these scams became more prevalent, advertising platforms started to wise up. They began implementing stronger security measures to detect and block these malicious ads. But as soon as the platforms patched one hole, Silnikow and his crew would find another. And you know what? In a twisted way, it's almost impressive. The level of creativity and technical skill that went into these scams was off the charts. But let's be clear, impressive or not, it was still criminal. These weren't victimless crimes. Real people lost real money and had their digital lives turned upside down. So next time you're browsing the web and you see one of those alarming pop-ups, remember this story. Remember that behind that scary message might be a group of highly skilled cybercriminals playing on your fears to make a quick buck. And remember, when it comes to the internet, a healthy dose of skepticism can go a long way. But our story isn't over yet. As the advertising platforms got smarter, so did our cybercrime crew. They were about to take things to a whole new level. And trust me, you won't believe what they came up with next. By 2021, people are getting wise to online scams. They're not clicking on every pop-up ad they see, and they're thinking twice before downloading that free software. But our guy Silnikow, he's not about to let a little public awareness slow him down. In fact, he's about to level up in a big way. Enter RANSOM CARTEL, a cyber criminal gang. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't this guy already do ransomware? And you'd be right, but this isn't your grandma's ransomware. This is a new breed of ransomware. Let's say version 2.0. It's about to get a whole lot scarier. In May 2021, Silnikow creates another ransomware as a service operation. Silnikow is the mastermind behind it all, going by a whole bunch of aliases like Targa, KLM, Lansky, and even JP Morgan. Talk about delusions of grandeur, right? But here's where it gets really interesting. Silnikow doesn't just create this ransomware. He starts recruiting other cybercriminals from online forums. He started building an army, each soldier armed with his custom-made ransomware. The RANSOM CARTEL ransomware uses some pretty sophisticated encryption methods. We're talking Salsa 20 and Curve 25519 algorithms. Now, I know that sounds like a spicy dance move and a bendy road, but in the world of cybersecurity, these are serious tools. They're like ultra-strong locks that are incredibly hard to pick. But here's where Silnikow's creation gets really sneaky. It uses something called the Windows Data Protection API, or DPAPI for short. This is a tool that's supposed to protect your passwords and other sensitive info. But in the hands of RANSOM CARTEL, it unlocks all your secrets. They used a tool called DonPapi to extract something called DPAPI blobs. Think of these blobs like little treasure chests filled with your Wi-Fi keys, remote desktop passwords, and all the login info you've saved in your web browsers. With this tool, the hackers can open these treasure chests and steal all your digital valuables. And Silnikow wasn't just sitting back and admiring his creation. Oh no, he put it to work. On November 16, 2021, RANSOM CARTEL hit its first big target, a company in New York. Then, just a few months later on March 5, 2022, they struck again, this time in California. In these attacks, they didn't just lock up the company's data, they stole it. Imagine someone breaking into your house, not just locking you out, but also rifling through all your personal stuff and threatening to share it with the world unless you pay up. That's what RANSOM CARTEL was doing. It's a chilling reminder of how our digital world can be turned against us. All those passwords we save for convenience, all those remember me boxes we tick without thinking. In the wrong hands, they become weapons. But this isn't the end of our story. Silnikau and his ransom cartel might have thought they were untouchable, ruling over the internet. But as we'll see, even the mightiest empires can fall. And in the world of cybercrime, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. The story of Ransom Cartel takes a twist that would make even the best mystery writers jealous. You see, while Silnikau and his ransom cartel were busy causing digital mayhem, the good guys weren't just sitting around. They were analyzing their every step and all of their code. Cybersecurity researchers were working tirelessly to unravel the mystery of this new ransomware threat. And boy, did they uncover something interesting. Picture this. You're a cybersecurity researcher poring over lines of code late into the night. Suddenly something catches your eye. A familiar pattern, a bit of code that looks eerily similar to something you've seen before. That's exactly what happened when these cybersecurity analysts started dissecting Ransom Cartel. They noticed striking similarities between Ransom Cartel and another infamous ransomware group called Revil. Now, for those of you who aren't up to date on cybercrime, Revil was like the top dog of the ransomware world. They were big, they were bad, and they caused billions of dollars in damage before their takedown in 2022. But here's where it gets really interesting. One of the researchers, Daniel Bunce from Unit 42, put it this way. Both use Salsa 20 and Curve 25519 for file encryption, and there are very few differences in the layout of the encryption routine besides the structure of the internal type structs. In plain English, the researchers found that both Ransom Cartel and Revil use the same encryption methods. The way these two ransomware strains lock up files is nearly identical. The most interesting part about this was that Revil's source code was never leaked. It wasn't out there for any script kiddie to copy and paste. Revil ransomware disappeared just a couple of months before Ransom Cartel surfaced, and just 1 month after 14 of its alleged members were arrested in Russia. When Ransom Cartel first appeared, it was unclear whether it was a rebrand of Revil or an unrelated threat actor who reused or mimicked Revil ransomware code. Now, Ransom Cartel wasn't a perfect copy. It was missing some of Revil's fancy tricks. It lacked Revil's original obfuscation engine. The connections between Ransom Cartel and Reveal became harder to ignore. But remember, as the cybersecurity community grappled with these revelations, Silnikau and his Ransom Cartel were still out there. After years of wreaking havoc in the digital world, Maxim Silnikau's luck was about to run out. On July 18, 2023, in a sun-soaked apartment in Estepona, Spain, the party came to an abrupt end. On a quiet morning at Costa del Sol, Silnikau, our 38-year-old cybercrime mastermind, was sipping his coffee, maybe checking his Bitcoin wallet. Then, bam! The door bursts open. In storms the Guardia Civil, that's Spain's national police force, but they're not alone. This takedown is a team effort. They've got backup from the NCA, that's the UK's National Crime Agency, and US law enforcement. It was one epic bust. Now, you might be wondering, how did they find this guy? Well, that's where the beauty of international cooperation comes in. The US had brought charges against several individuals, including our friend Silnikau. They shared this info with their European counterparts, and boom, the pieces fell into place. Finally, on August 12, 2024, after extradition, Silnikau makes his grand debut in an American courtroom. Picture him standing there in Newark, New Jersey, probably jet-lagged and definitely not happy. This isn't just any court appearance. It's the moment when the full weight of the U.S. justice system comes crashing down on him. Let's step into the courtroom. Our cybercrime saga is winding down, but the drama? Oh, it's far from over. Now, let me break down what Silnikau's facing. In New Jersey alone, he's up against charges for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit computer fraud, and 2 counts of substantive wire fraud. Virginia's had its own bone to pick with Silnikau. They're throwing in conspiracy to commit computer fraud and abuse, more wire fraud charges, something called access device fraud, think stealing credit card info, and identity theft. Now, let's talk potential jail time, because it's not looking good for our alleged cybercriminal. If he's found guilty on all counts, Silnikau could be looking at up to 27 years for the wire fraud conspiracy alone. Add in the other charges, and we're talking about a possible sentence that could keep him behind bars well into his senior years. But remember Vladimir Kadaria, one of Silnikau's alleged partners in crime? The one who he started the cybercrime dream team with? Well, he's still out there somewhere and the US government wants him bad. They're offering a $2.5 million reward for information leading to his arrest or conviction. That's right, $2.5 million. His face is planted over the Secret Service's website. Go take a look. He's now one of the most wanted cyber criminals. Yet, as we speak, there are cyber criminals just like Maxim Silnikau and Vladimir Kadaria who are starting their empires. It's a constant battle, with hackers always trying to stay one step ahead, and defenders racing to catch them before it's too late. So, as we watch Silnikau face the music in that New Jersey courtroom, remember, this is just one chapter in an ongoing story. Stay safe out there, and remember, the next time you see a pop-up ad that seems too good to be true, or a highly sophisticated phishing email, think of Silnikau and his alleged cybercrime empire. It may be Vladimir Kadaria, or the next evolution of RANSOM CARTEL. You've heard about ONLYFANS, right? It's this website that's blown up recently. Basically, it lets people post exclusive content, photos, videos, you name it, and their fans pay to see it. It's become huge, especially for adult content creators. Now, ONLYFANS works like this. Content creators make an account and set up a monthly subscription price. Fans sign up and pay that fee to access all the creator's content. Creators can also offer pay-per-view posts or custom content for an extra charge. ONLYFANS takes a 20% cut of all the money that comes in, and the creator keeps the other 80%. The platform's gotten really popular because it gives creators a way to monetize their content directly. No middlemen, no big studios. Just a direct connection between creators and their fans. And for consumers, they get exclusive content from their favorite creators that they can't find anywhere else. But here's the thing, with all that exclusive content and financial info floating around, security becomes a big deal. ONLYFANS has some basic security measures in place. They use HTTPS encryption to protect data in transit, and they have systems to detect suspicious login attempts. But, as we'll see, determined hackers are always looking for ways around these defenses. The popularity of ONLYFANS, combined with the sensitive nature of a lot of the content on there, makes it a prime target for cybercriminals. There's a whole underground economy based on stealing and selling ONLYFANS account credentials. And that's where our story really begins. So, we've talked about ONLYFANS and how popular it's become, right? Well, here's where things start to get wild. You see, Whenever there's money to be made, there are always people looking to exploit the system. And OnlyFans, it's become a prime target for cybercriminals. Let me paint you a sinister picture. Imagine these dark corners of the internet where hackers and cybercriminals hang out. These are called hacking forums. It's that dark corner of the internet world where people trade information, tools, and stolen data. And on one of these forums, a user named Bill Alconicom showed up with an offer that caught everyone's attention. This guy, Bill Alconicom, he comes in saying he's got a tool that can check OnlyFans accounts. Now, when we say check, we're not just talking about checking the juicy content these creators posted. No. In the world of cybercrime, a checker is a specialized piece of software. Its purpose? To validate stolen credentials on a massive scale. Let me break down what these checker tools actually do, because it's pretty intense. 1. They take lists of stolen usernames and passwords. We're talking thousands, maybe even millions of combinations. 2. Then they automatically try these credentials on the target website. In this case, OnlyFans. 3. If a login is successful, the tool records it and can even perform additional actions. For OnlyFans specifically, these checker tools are designed to confirm if the stolen username and password actually work. Check the account balance, how much money is in there. See if the account has a payment method attached, like a credit card. And finally, it can figure out if it's a regular user account or a creator account with special privileges. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, think about it. If a cybercriminal gets access to a creator's account, they could steal earnings, access private content, or even impersonate the creator. For regular user accounts, they could make unauthorized purchases or access exclusive content without paying. So yeah, we're talking about a tool that organized cybercrime groups use to target a platform with millions of users and creators. I bet a lot of the creators on OnlyFans didn't think about this threat when they were blinded by all the money to be made. Alright, so here's where things get really wild. Remember that OnlyFans checker tool that Bill Alconicom was offering? Turns out, it wasn't what it seemed at all. In fact, it was a classic bait and switch move, but with an extreme malicious twist. What these wannabe hackers didn't realize was that they were walking right into a trap. The tool they thought would help them break into OnlyFans accounts was actually a delivery system for one of the most notorious pieces of malware out there. We're talking about a piece of software called LumaStealer, and let me tell you, this thing is no joke. LumaStealer is what we call information-stealing malware. Its whole purpose is to get onto your computer and start siphoning off all kinds of sensitive data. It wasn't just targeting the hackers. This thing was designed to infect anyone who tried to use it, whether they were trying to hack OnlyFans or not. Now, let's talk about where this LumaStealer came from. It first popped up in August 2022, and it's the brainchild of this hacker who goes by the name Shamel, or Luma. LumaStealer is part of what we call a malware as a service model, or MaaS for short. What's MaaS, you ask? Well, it's basically like a subscription service, but for malware. Cybercriminals can rent LumaStealer for anywhere from $250 to $1,000 a month. And they're not just getting the malware, they're getting updates, customer support, the whole package. It's like the dark web version of Adobe Creative Cloud. But instead of Photoshop, you're getting tools to steal people's data. Now, the way they distribute this thing is pretty clever. They're not just sending out email attachments like it's 2005. No, they're using all kinds of methods: malicious ads, YouTube comments, torrents, and even GitHub comments. They're spreading this thing anywhere they can, trying to catch as many victims as possible. But what makes LumaStealer so dangerous is how it's built. It's written in a programming language called C, which might not mean much to you if you're not a coder, but here's why it matters. C allows for really efficient code execution. This means Llama Stealer can run fast and use minimal system resources, making it harder for antivirus software to detect. What started as a tool promising to hack OnlyFans turned out to be a Trojan horse for one of the most sophisticated pieces of malware out there. Funny thing is, the very people who thought they were going to be the next big-time hackers ended up becoming the prey. Before we continue with the story, let's dive even deeper into this Llama Stealer malware. This thing isn't just trying to steal your Facebook password. No, it's going after what matters the most. We're talking cryptocurrency wallets, which are basically the digital bank accounts for Bitcoin and other crypto. If someone gets access to that, they can drain your funds faster than you can say blockchain. It's also targeting something called two-factor authentication, or 2FA. That's the extra security step where you have to enter a code from your phone after putting in your password. Llama is specifically going after the browser extensions that handle 2FA, almost like crafting a replica of your house keys. It's basically hunting for any sensitive information on your computer. We're talking passwords, credit card numbers, browsing history, anything it can get its hands on. Llama doesn't stop there. When it gets into your system, it starts snooping around in all your web browsers. Chrome, Firefox, Edge, you name it. It's looking for cookies. Not the tasty kind, the kind that websites use to remember you. It sniffs out all of your saved passwords within your browser. But here's the catch. It's not just looking in your browsers. Llama is also searching through your files. It's got a hit list of file names it's looking for. Things like seed.txt, pass.txt, and wallet.txt. These are the kinds of files where people often store their cryptocurrency information. Once it finds these, GG. The level of sophistication here is off the charts. We're not talking about some novice code. This is professional-grade malware designed to be as stealthy, efficient, and effective. By the time most people realize they've been hit by Llama, it's already too late. Their data is gone, their crypto is stolen, and they're left wondering what the hell just happened. So how does Llama Stealer actually infect your computer? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it has multiple stages of evolution, each one more insidious than the last. So, it starts off innocent enough. You're browsing the internet, maybe looking for some OnlyFans hacks, and you come across a link. It's usually on mediafire.com or one of those bit.ly short links. You click it, and boom, you're downloading a password-protected zip file. The password? It's always change me. That should be your first red flag right there. Inside this zip file, you've got a few DLL files. Those are like little helper programs. And an executable file with a really technical sounding name. Now, if you're not a computer expert, that name you just saw might sound legit. But trust me, it's not. When you run this file, that's when the real fun begins. The malware kicks into its first stage. It creates a file with a .sgif extension in a public folder on your computer. This file has a random name, so it's hard to track. It's like the malware is setting up its first hideout. Then we hit stage 2. The malware creates what's called a suspended process of something called BitLocker2Go.exe. Now, BitLocker is actually a legit Windows encryption tool, but the malware is using it as a disguise. Here's where it gets really sneaky. The malware uses a technique called process hollowing. Imagine the BitLocker process as an empty shell. The malware injects its own malicious code into this shell. So now, when your computer looks at this process, it sees BitLocker, but it's actually the malware in disguise. From here, it connects to a GitHub account with the username userbestie. It downloads the following executable file. This is the real nasty stuff, the part that's going to do the actual stealing. In the final stage, the malware starts communicating with its home base. It sends out DNS queries. Think of these like phone calls to specific web addresses. These addresses are the command and control servers, which the hackers are in control of, and once they phone home, the hackers are just waiting on these servers, ready to start harvesting your data. So, the cybersecurity researchers didn't just stop at identifying the malware, they went full CSI on this thing, the llama stealer deployed in the ONLYFANS tool. They traced it. They observed the malware communicating back to a bunch of newly created shop domains. These domains were the home base. Not only that, but when the malware was sending stolen data back to these servers, it disguised itself as a browser called Tesla Browser 5.5. Might sound familiar to some, might not, but this is Elon Musk's creation. It's the web browser that's installed in Tesla's cars all around the world. The whole process is designed to be as stealthy as possible. It's using legitimate-looking file names, hiding in public folders and disguising itself as normal Windows processes and even a Tesla. For anyone who downloaded this, by the time they realize something's wrong, it was already too late. Alright, so just when you think this whole ONLYFANS hacking tool story couldn't get any crazier, it does. Turns out, our boy Bilal Khanakam wasn't just targeting the thirsty ONLYFANS crowd. This guy was playing 4D chess. So check this out. Bilal Khanakam's got his fingers in all sorts of pies. He's not just after ONLYFANS accounts. Nah, he's got a whole menu of malicious offerings. You want to hack Disney Plus? He's got a tool for that, disneychecker.exe. Looking to break into Instagram accounts? Instacheck.exe is your poison. And for the real ambitious cybercriminals out there, he's even got something called ccmirai.exe, which is something a wannabe botnet creator might love to get their hands on. But as we saw with the ONLYFANS checker, all these tools, they're not what they seem. They're all just different flavors of the same virus. Remember that GitHub account we talked about earlier, UserBestie? Turns out, that's where all these malicious payloads are being hosted. You've got your ONLYFANS checker, your Disney Plus cracker, your Instagram breaker, all under one roof. So this guy is not targeting innocent victims. The people downloading these tools, they're wannabe hackers themselves. It's like the food chain. He's the big fish, eating all the little fish. Verity, the research team that uncovered all this, they put it best. They said this whole operation is a perfect example of how blurry the lines are in cybercrime. 1 minute you're the predator, the next you're the prey. The irony here is thick enough to cut with a knife. You've got cybercriminals, people who are trying to steal and hack, falling victim to another cybercriminal. It's like watching a bunch of pickpockets trying to pickpocket each other. You almost want to laugh, except for the fact that this is still illegal, and getting involved here is seriously dangerous. Now, if you're one of the unlucky ones who got hit by this thing, I have no sympathy for you whatsoever. But here's what you need to do. Change your passwords. All of them. Use a different password for each account. Don't be lazy about this. If you've got any cryptocurrency, move it to a new wallet as soon as possible. But for organizations who face the real threat of being hit with llama stealer, then they need to step up their game too. They need robust endpoint security solutions. Think of it like having a bouncer at every entrance of your digital nightclub. They need to configure their firewalls, email gateways, and proxies to block communication with known bad IP addresses and domains. And they need to be doing this 24/7. Application whitelisting is another big one. It's like having a VIP list for your computer. Only approved programs get to run. And regular vulnerability assessments and penetration testing. For any aspiring hackers out there, you can get paid from companies to try and break into their systems, find the weak spots, and let them know how to fix it before the real bad guys figure it out first. For individual users, it's all about being cautious. Don't open files from sources you don't trust. Don't click on sketchy links. Don't download OnlyFans checkers. It's like your mom always told you. Don't take candy from strangers, especially on the internet. Use good antivirus software and keep it updated. Stay alert for social engineering tactics. These hackers are like con artists. 99% of the time, they're just trying to trick you into letting them in. The bottom line is this: in today's digital world, you can't afford to be careless. Whether you're a big company or just someone browsing OnlyFans, you've got to take your cybersecurity seriously. Because trust me, the hackers out there, they're taking it way more seriously. It's crazy, man. We've got cyber criminals trying to hack OnlyFans accounts, but they end up getting hacked themselves. This case really shows how sophisticated these cyber threats have become. These are professional-grade tools, available to anyone with enough cash and bad intentions. It's like the dark web equivalent of Amazon. Malware on demand, delivered right to your computer. Even the bad guys need to up their cybersecurity game. I mean, when the hackers are getting hacked, you know things are not what they used to be. Looking ahead, platforms like OnlyFans, Disney+, well, they've got their work cut out for them. They're sitting on a goldmine of sensitive user data, and every hacker out there wants a piece of it. We need enhanced authentication. Maybe something like biometrics or multi-factor authentication. They need better ways to spot suspicious activity, you know, like when someone suddenly logs in from the other side of the world. And something that's starting to take the cybersecurity game by storm: AI-driven threat detection. That's going to be huge to prevent security incidents like these. But this is an ongoing battle. As soon as the good guys come up with a new defense, the hackers have a way around it. In the end, whether you're a content creator, a platform user, or hell, even a wannabe hacker, the message is clear. You gotta stay sharp. If you're looking for more cybersecurity stories or documentaries, then don't go anywhere. There's more coming right up, and this next one is absolutely disgusting.
Russian hackers' attempts to steal information on American intelligence programs.
According to Russian media, one of the FSB officers was arrested earlier this year by Russian authorities.
All right, let's dive into this crazy story about Russian spies and hackers. Before we start, just remember, this isn't a movie. It's all real. So there's this unit in Russian military intelligence called Unit 29155. These guys are the real deal. We're talking James Bond level stuff. Before 2020, they were all about old school spy tactics. The FBI, NSA, and CISA, you know, the big guns in US intelligence. They figured out that this unit was behind some serious operations across Europe. I'm not just talking about stealing secrets here. These guys were trying to overthrow governments, sabotage critical infrastructure, and even carry out assassinations. They were the boogeyman that kept European intelligence agencies up at night. But it gets even wilder. There's evidence suggesting that these guys were behind something called Havana syndrome. You might have heard about this. It's these unexplained health incidents that have been happening to US government personnel and their families overseas. We're talking headaches, dizziness, and other weird symptoms that seem to come out of nowhere. Now, some people think these incidents might be caused by directed energy weapons. And guess who's been spotted at the scenes of some of these suspected attacks? That's right, members of Unit 29155. It's like they're not content with just reconnaissance and hell, even assassinations. They might be messing with some seriously advanced tech, too. But around 2020, Unit 29155 started to change its game. They realized that in today's world, you can do a lot more damage with a keyboard than with a gun. So they began expanding into offensive cyber operations. Now, when I talk about offensive cyber operations, this is serious, state-sponsored hacking. These attacks are meant for shutting down power grids, disrupting financial systems, or even interfering with military communications. The shift from physical operations to cyber warfare isn't just a change in tactics. It represents a fundamental evolution in how modern conflicts are fought. In the cyber realm, the battlefield is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. An attack can be launched from thousands of miles away with devastating effects, and it can be incredibly difficult to prove who's behind it. As I dive deeper into this story, I'm going to show you just how Unit 29155 leveraged this new digital battleground. So, on November 12th, 2021, while most of us were probably thinking about Thanksgiving plans, these Russian hackers were busy breaking into an organization in Lithuania. This wasn't just some random attack. It was the earliest known compromise that we can tie directly to Unit 29155's new cyber playbook. These guys exploited vulnerabilities in Microsoft Exchange servers. Microsoft Exchange is like the backbone of email and calendaring for a ton of businesses. When there's a flaw in Exchange, it's a big deal because it can give attackers a direct line into an organization's communications. The hackers used these vulnerabilities to gain initial access to the Lithuanian organization's network. But they didn't just break in and start causing chaos right away. No, they were playing the long game. Once they were in, they installed what we call web shells. Now, a web shell is basically a malicious script that lets an attacker remotely access and control a server through a web browser. It's like leaving a secret backdoor that only you know about. The really sneaky part? Web shells can often bypass normal authentication and firewalls. So even if the organization thought they'd patched the original vulnerability, these hackers still had a way in. This is what we call a persistence mechanism. The unit wasn't just looking to get in and out quickly. They wanted to establish a foothold that would let them come back whenever they wanted, for as long as they wanted. Symantec, one of the big cybersecurity firms, found evidence that this compromise lasted for months. But this was just the setup. The web shells weren't the end goal. They were preparing the ground for something even nastier, a type of malware called a wiper. I'll get into that in the next part of our story, but let me tell you, it's not something you want anywhere near your computer. These hackers are patient, they're methodical, and they're playing a long game. And that's what makes them so dangerous. Fasten your seatbelts, because we're going to delve right into this wiper. On January 13th, 2022, Unit 29155 unleashed a cyber weapon called Whispergate on Ukrainian government networks. This wasn't just your ordinary malware. This was a wrecking ball designed to cause maximum damage. Unlike ransomware, which holds your data for ransom, wiper malware's sole purpose is destruction. It's like the difference between a burglar and an arsonist. One wants to profit, the other just wants to watch things burn. It had two main components, two executable files, Stage 1 and Stage 2. Now, these names might sound boring, but trust me, what they do is anything but. First up, the executable file Stage 1. This bad boy went straight for the jugular of a computer system, the Master Boot Record, or MBR. The MBR is like the table of contents for your hard drive. It tells your computer where to find all the important stuff it needs to boot up. Stage 1 overwrote this critical information, essentially leaving the computer with amnesia. But here's the really devious part. It then displayed a fake ransom note. The attackers were trying to make it look like a regular ransomware attack, when in reality they had no intention of restoring the data, a false flag, if you will. Now, onto the second executable file, Stage 2. This component was like a stealth bomber. It quietly downloaded a payload, a JPEG file from Discord. Yeah, you heard that right. They were using a gaming chat platform to distribute malware. That's some next-level stuff right there. Discord is commonly leveraged by hackers as a way to control and distribute malware. In this case, it was used to obtain the next step of the infection chain by directly sharing files through its platform. Anyway, once downloaded, the malicious payload was loaded into the computer's memory. This payload's job was simple but devastating. Destroy data. I'm talking about wiping out important files, documents, everything. The targets of this attack weren't random. Whispergate went after Ukrainian government ministries, agencies, and services. This was a coordinated strike aimed at crippling Ukraine's governmental infrastructure. This attack on critical infrastructure is a big deal in the world of cyber warfare. It's not just about stealing secrets anymore. It's about potentially crippling a nation's ability to function. Imagine if suddenly government agencies couldn't access their systems, couldn't communicate, couldn't function. That's the kind of chaos Whispergate is designed to create. The fact that they made the attack look like ransomware is also significant. It shows a level of psychological warfare trying to confuse and misdirect as part of the attack strategy. This Whispergate attack marked a serious escalation in Unit 29155 cyber operations. It showed they weren't just interested in espionage or theft. They were willing and able to cause real, tangible damage to critical systems. And remember, this was just the beginning. The digital battlefield was heating up, and Whispergate was just the opening move in what was about to become a full-scale cyber war. So now, I'm going to show you the craziest part about this whole story. Exactly what went down in February 2022. This is when things really started heating up, both in the cyber world and on the ground in Ukraine. So on February 23rd, cybersecurity firms stumbled onto another wiper. They called it Hermetic Wiper. Now get this, even though they found it on the 23rd, the malware was actually compiled on December 28th, 2021. That's almost 2 months earlier. It's like these hackers were setting up the dominoes way in advance, just waiting for the right moment to knock them down. Hermetic Wiper used Ease US partition manager drivers to corrupt files. Now normally these drivers are used to manage hard drive partitions, but Hermetic Wiper weaponized them to wreak havoc. Similarly to the Whispergate attack, Hermetic Wiper also went after the master boot record, or MBR, of infected systems. Hermetic Wiper made devices completely unbootable. Imagine turning on your computer and nothing. The attackers didn't just unleash Hermetic Wiper and call it a day. No, they launched a multi-vector attack. While Hermetic Wiper was doing its thing, they also hit Ukrainian government agencies and banks with DDoS attacks. DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service. It's when you flood a website with so much traffic that it can't handle it and goes offline. But they also deployed a Golang-based ransomware decoy. Golang is a programming language. And to put it simply, this ransomware was just a fake out. Again, these attacks weren't random. They went after finance and government contractors in Ukraine, Latvia, and Lithuania. It aimed to cripple Ukraine's ability to function. Now for the icing on the cake, all of this happened just hours before Russia physically invaded Ukraine on February 24th. The cyber attacks and the ground invasion were clearly coordinated, showing just how intertwined modern warfare and cyber operations have become. This whole episode shows how sophisticated and patient these attackers are. They compiled the malware almost 2 months before using it, carefully planning their attack. They used multiple attack vectors simultaneously: wiper malware, DDoS attacks, and decoy ransomware. And they timed it all to coincide with a physical military invasion. This is an ongoing cyber warfare situation. We're watching a never-ending boxing match, but instead of punches, we've got hackers throwing code at each other. Unit 29155 has been running non-stop cyber operations against Ukraine and its allies. We're not talking about a one-and-done deal here. These guys are relentless, constantly evolving their tactics and targets. On top of these devastating wiper attacks, they were also observed defacing websites. Now, this might sound like digital graffiti, but it's more serious than that. When these hackers deface a website, they're not just changing the look. They're often injecting malicious code or spreading disinformation. It's a way to undermine trust and spread chaos. Since early 2022, these cyber actors have specifically gone after the people who were linked to efforts to provide aid to Ukraine. Think about that for a second. They're trying to disrupt the help that's being sent to a country at war. Their focus on disrupting aid to Ukraine, that's a clear sign that cyber warfare is becoming an integral part of modern conflicts. It's not just about hacking for profit anymore. It's about using digital attacks to support real-world military and political objectives. They were hacking transportation infrastructure, specifically industrial control systems, or ICS, and supervisory control and data acquisition, or SCADA systems. These are specialized computer systems that control physical processes. In a transportation network, they might control things like railway switches, traffic light timing, or fuel distribution for vehicles. The thing about these systems is that they weren't originally designed with internet connectivity in mind. But over the years, they've been connected to networks for easier management and monitoring. This connectivity, while convenient, also creates vulnerabilities that hackers can exploit. When attackers go after these systems, they're looking to disrupt or even control physical processes. Imagine if they could change traffic light patterns to cause gridlock, or mess with railway switches to cause delays or even accidents. On June 26, 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice dropped a bombshell. They indicted a guy named Amin Timovich Stiegel. Now, this wasn't just some random dude. Stiegel was a key player in the Russian GRU's Unit 29155. Just a couple months later, on September 5th, 2024, the DOJ wasn't done. They came out swinging with indictments against 5 more GRU officers from Unit 29155. They didn't just want to take down one bad apple. This was exposing an entire operation. These indictments pulled back the curtain on a massive state-sponsored hacking operation. It showed that Unit 29155 wasn't just a bunch of lone wolves, but a coordinated team with serious backing from the Russian government. The US government was finally saying, enough is enough, and putting names and faces to the attacks that had been causing so much disruption. But here's the thing. While these indictments were a big win for Russia's opposition, it just goes to show how vulnerable the internet really is. It's a serious concern and a call to action for governments and organizations worldwide. The cyber battlefield had become just as important as any physical one, and the stakes were only getting higher. So yeah, they went hard, scanning over 14,000 domains across at least 26 NATO countries. That's not your average hacking attempt. The scale of this operation is mind-blowing. Over 14,000 instances of domain scanning. Research shows these guys are just junior, active-duty GRU officers, working under experienced leadership. That's right. The actual hackers in this Russian military intelligence wing are pretty much a group of young guys. These are images released from the US government, seeking information on the whereabouts. The severity of these attacks and the clear national security implications led the US State Department to take an unprecedented step, offering a $10 million reward for information on the indicted individuals. That's not chump change. Unit 29155 had a whole arsenal of cyber tools at their disposal. First up, they were using a bunch of active scanning tools. I'm talking about stuff like Acunetics, Amass, DroopScan, JoomScan, MassCan, Netcat, Nmap, Shodan, VirusTotal, and WPScan. Now, these tools aren't inherently bad. In fact, a lot of defensive cybersecurity teams use them to test their own systems. But in the tools of hackers, they can be used for malicious intent. Nmap, for example, is a network scanning tool. It's designed to map out a network, showing what ports are open, what services are running, and even what operating systems are being used. Normally, it's used by network admins to keep track of their systems. Unit 29155 was using it to find weak points in their targets' networks. Shodan is another interesting one. It's often called the search engine for the Internet of Things. It can find all sorts of devices connected to the internet, from webcams to industrial control systems. Again, it's not inherently malicious, but it can be used to find vulnerable systems that aren't properly secured. It's not like Unit 29155 had some super secret gadgets. The tools were publicly available. Only difference is how they were using them. For example, the tool they used, WPScan, it's designed to find vulnerabilities in WordPress websites. A website admin might use it to check their own site for weaknesses. But Unit 29155 was likely using it to find exploitable WordPress sites that they could use as stepping stones into larger networks. When you're using legitimate tools in illegitimate ways, it's hard for defenders to tell the difference between normal network activity and an attack in progress. This is just the reconnaissance phase. They were building a detailed map of their target's network, finding every nook and cranny they could potentially exploit. But remember now, I haven't even gotten into how they were using this information gathered from their reconnaissance to actually break in and cause havoc. So, once they cased the joint, they weren't just guessing passwords. They were using some serious vulnerabilities to get in. There were these two vulnerabilities, CVE 2021-33044 and CVE 2021-33045. These were both found in Dahua products, which are used for things like security cameras and video recorders. Now, normally when you try to log into one of these devices, it should check if you have the right username and password. But these vulnerabilities let attackers completely bypass that check. Here's how it works. The attacker sends a specially crafted data packet to the device. This packet is designed to trick the device into thinking the attacker has already been authenticated. It's like slipping a fake ID to a bouncer at a club. The device sees this packet and goes, "Oh, you must be legit," and lets the attacker write in. No password required. Now let's talk about CVE 2022-26138. This one's specific. It affects something called the Questions for Confluence app, which is used in a lot of corporate environments for team collaboration. The problem here is that when you install certain versions of this app, it creates a user account with a hard-coded password. A hard-coded password is extremely bad, really bad. Anyone who knows this password can log in and access everything that normal users can see. And because it's hard-coded, you can't just change it like you would a normal password. Lastly, we've got CVE 2022-3226. This one affects Sophos firewalls, which are supposed to be the guardians of your network, controlling who and what can talk to each other. The vulnerability is in something called the user portal and web admin interfaces. Normally, these interfaces should only let you do certain pre-approved actions, but this vulnerability let Unit 29155 execute any code they wanted on the firewall. What makes all of these vulnerabilities so dangerous is that they're what we call remote and unauthenticated. That means an attacker doesn't need to be physically present, and they don't need any kind of legitimate access to the system. They can exploit these vulnerabilities from anywhere in the world without needing a username or password. And Unit 29155 wasn't just using one of them. They were using all of them, and probably more that we don't even know about yet. Now, once they got inside a network, this is how they moved around and took control. Pass the hash via proxy chains. Now, pass the hash is a technique where attackers use the hash of a user's password instead of the actual password to authenticate. Normally, when you log into a system, it checks your password against a stored hash. But with pass the hash, the attacker bypasses this process by directly using the hash. Proxy chains is a tool that forces any TCP connection made by a program to follow through a chain of proxies. Unit 29155 was using this to hide their tracks, making it harder to trace their activities back to their real location. Next, they used Impacket tools. Impacket is a collection of Python classes for working with network protocols. Two specific tools they used were secretsdump.py and psexec.py. Secretsdump.py can extract password hashes from a system, while psexec.py allows for remote command execution. In the wrong hands, these tools can be devastating, giving attackers the ability to steal credentials and run commands on compromised systems. Bloodhound maps out the relationships in an Active Directory environment with a pretty graphical user interface showing them different paths in the network, to high-value targets like admin accounts. So when you put it all together, Unit 29155 could use Bloodhound to map out a network, use pass the hash and impact to move between systems without needing full password, and more tools to gain higher privileges and move laterally around the network, all while using proxy chains to hide their tracks. After taking complete control of the network, this is what they did. They used virtual private servers to host their operational tools. These are normally used by businesses to run applications or store data. But Unit 29155 was using them as a hidden base of operations. By hosting their tools on these, they could run their attacks from servers that didn't look linked to them. Next, they used MeterPreter, a powerful tool that's part of the Metasploit framework. It's designed to load directly into memory and doesn't write anything to the disk of the target system. This makes it really hard to detect. The payloads had the ability to create a reverse connection, meaning that instead of the attacker connecting to the victim's computer connects back to the attacker. This helps bypass firewalls and other security measures. Now, in a network, the domain name system, or DNS, which may be familiar to some of you, is normally used to translate domain names into IP addresses. They had these tools called DNSCAT2 and Iodine that abuse the DNS protocol to create a secret channel for data transmission. It's like hiding secret messages in plain sight. Most security systems aren't looking for malicious traffic in DNS requests, so this method can often go undetected. Finally, they use Go Simple Tunnel, a tool written in the Go programming language that can create multiple secure tunnels. They basically had a bunch of secret underground passages that allowed them to move around undetected. So essentially, all together, they used the virtual private servers to host their command and control servers, MeterPreter to maintain access to compromised systems, DNS tunneling to exfiltrate data without raising alarms, and Ghost to create secure connections back to their servers. I'm telling you, they know what they're doing. By now, all they needed to do was exfiltrate data. You know, Mega, that file hosting service? Well, they had this tool called rclone. It allows data exfiltration to cloud storage. So they'd set it up to connect to a Mega account they controlled. Mega is kind of like Dropbox, but with a reputation for strong encryption and privacy. So with this pipeline set up, they can just tell rclone to copy files from the victim's computer straight to their Mega account. But it gets worse. They were trying to exfiltrate specific information embedded into Windows systems. We're talking LSAS dumps, SAM files, and event logs. LSAS stands for Local Security Authority Subsystem Service. It's a process in Windows that handles security policy. An LSAS dump is basically a snapshot of this process's memory. Why is that valuable? Because it often contains login credentials for users who've logged into that computer. We're talking usernames and password hashes. SAM files are another goldmine. SAM stands for Security Account Manager. This file is like the address book of a Windows system, containing all the user accounts and their password hashes. If you can get your hands on this, you've basically hit triple sevens. Event logs might sound boring, but for a hacker, they're incredibly valuable. These logs record all sorts of system activities. By analyzing these, the hackers can understand how the system is set up, what security measures are in place, and even find evidence of other user accounts they might want to target. We've seen how this Russian military intelligence unit transformed from a group focused on physical operations like coups and assassinations to a full-blown cyber threat. It's a massive shift in how warfare is conducted, moving from boots on the ground to fingers on keyboards. In order to protect against these kinds of attacks, there's a few things you can do. First up, you need to patch those vulnerabilities. It's like fixing holes in your fence. You see a gap, you plug it. Simple as that. Next, implement network segmentation. Imagine your network is a ship. You want watertight compartments, so if one part gets hit, the whole thing doesn't sink. You've got to enable phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. It's not just about passwords anymore. Think of it like this. Something you know, your password. Something you have, your phone. And something you are, your fingerprint. Triple protection. You also need to watch out for unauthorized access attempts. Set up systems that alert you when something fishy is going on, like multiple failed logins or weird data transfers. Here's something cool, comprehensive logging and SIEM solutions. You're keeping detailed records of everything happening on your network and using tools like Splunk or Microsoft Sentinel to analyze them. Disable unnecessary OS applications and network protocols. The fewer things running, the fewer ways a hacker can get in. It's all about reducing the attack surface. Secure your sensitive data and credentials. Use encryption to protect important info and store passwords somewhere safe. It's like having a digital safe for your most valuable stuff. Now this is important. Restrict command line and PowerShell activities. These are powerful tools that hackers love to misuse. Limiting who can use them is crucial. Use up-to-date encryption algorithms. It's like having an unbreakable code for your data. The newer the method, the harder it is for hackers to crack. For you company owners out there, consider pen testing your network and scoring yourself against the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It's like hiring a professional thief to test your security system. Find the weaknesses before the bad guys do. Here's the thing. What we're seeing with Unit 2, 9155 is just the beginning. This is the future of warfare. It's not just about tanks and planes anymore. It's about computers and code. Countries can attack each other's critical infrastructure without ever crossing a physical border. Can you believe that? And get this, it's not just governments and big corporations at risk. In our interconnected world, these attacks can affect everyone. Your smart fridge could be part of their botnet right now, and you wouldn't even know it. Stay safe out there. And also, stay tuned for the next story. These guys are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to computer hackers.
Private and secure ways of connecting.
How the perpetrators of the attacks were able to go completely undetected. The focus is now on encrypted apps.
I'm gonna call Melissa.
What are you talking about?
I'm about to take you on a wild ride through the secretive world of encrypted communications and organized crime. Disclaimer, this is for mature audiences only. Let's start with the basics. Encrypted communications. You probably heard about them, right? It's like passing notes on paper, but way more high-tech. Basically, it's a way to send messages that only the intended recipient can read. In today's world, where everyone's trying to peek at your data, this technology is what everyone's been seeking. Now, imagine if criminals got their hands on this technology. That's exactly the idea behind the Ghost platform. This wasn't your average messaging app. We're talking about a seriously advanced system that organized crime groups used for all sorts of illegal activities, from drug trafficking to money laundering. Hell, even much worse things. The mastermind behind Ghost, a 32-year-old Australian dude from a quiet suburb in Sydney's south. Doesn't sound like your typical criminal mastermind, does he? But he had elite skills in cryptography, and man, did he create something that gave law enforcement nightmares. Let's break down what makes encrypted communications so special. At its core, it's about scrambling your message so that only the person with the right key can unscramble it. It's not just simple code. We're talking complex mathematical algorithms that would take supercomputers thousands of years to crack. Secure messaging platforms take this to the next level. They're not just encrypting the content of your messages, but often hiding who's talking to who, when they're talking, and from where. It's like having a secret conversation in a crowded room where nobody can even tell you're talking, let alone what you're saying. The Ghost platform was the cream of the crop when it came to these secure messaging systems. It wasn't just using off-the-shelf encryption. This thing was custom built to be as secure and anonymous as possible. We're talking multiple layers of encryption, special features to hide user identities. Basically, anyone wanting to peek inside was simply tough out of luck. While this technology is crucial for protecting privacy and freedom of speech in many parts of the world, in the wrong hands, it becomes a powerful tool for criminals. And that's exactly what happened with Ghost. So, are you ready to dive into the world of Ghost? Trust me, it's going to be one hell of a ride. About 9 years ago, there was this guy, a complete recluse, who would soon be the biggest villain in cybersecurity and networking. His name is Jae-Jung Jung, and he decided he's going to create something that'll change the game in encrypted communications. And man, did he deliver. Now you might be wondering, what makes Ghost so special? First off, Ghost wasn't just your average messaging app. It had some seriously advanced security features. Let's talk about them one by one. Cryptocurrency payments. You see, Ghost wasn't free. Users had to pay for subscriptions. But they didn't use regular money. Nope, they used cryptocurrency. Now, why's that important? Well, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin operate on decentralized networks, making transactions harder to trace. It's not completely anonymous, but it adds a layer of privacy that traditional banking doesn't offer. Next up, triple encryption layers. This is where the money is. Ghost didn't just use one layer of encryption, they used 3. It's like putting your message in a locked box, then putting that box in another locked box, and then putting that in yet another locked box. You get the idea. Each layer uses a different mathematical algorithm to encode the data, making it exponentially harder for anyone to crack. But there's more. Ghost also had a message self-destruction system. You know, in movies where messages self-destruct after being read? Well, this was the real deal. Once a message was read, it would automatically delete itself from both the sender's and recipient's devices. This means even if someone managed to get their hands on your phone, they wouldn't find any incriminating messages. Jung marketed Ghost as an unhackable network. That's a bold claim in the world of cybersecurity. He painted a big target on his back with this statement. He dared hackers and law enforcement to try and crack it. So while these features are great for privacy, they're a double-edged sword. The same technology that protects innocent people's privacy can also be used by criminals to hide their activities. You've got to understand, this level of security was far beyond even military-grade encryption. So when a platform like this pops up, it naturally attracts people who have something serious to hide. The creation of Ghost wasn't just about making a secure messaging app. It was about pushing the boundaries of what was possible in encrypted communications. And in doing so, it set the stage for a decade-long game between criminals, both in real life and cyber ones, and law enforcement. All right, let's dive into how this Ghost platform really started to take off. It's wild, man. You've got this super secret messaging app that's been quietly growing for years, and suddenly it's everywhere. Ghost started out as this little-known service, right? But over the last few years, it's been gaining traction. It's like that band you've never heard of that suddenly blows up and everyone's talking about them. That's Ghost. It had about 7,200 devices worldwide. That's not huge in the grand scheme of things, but remember, these devices weren't owned by average people. This was a network containing the biggest and baddest criminals worldwide. In Jae-Jung Jung's home country, Australia, only 376 of those devices were active. So yeah, Ghost's reach was far and wide. On these active devices, users weren't just casually chatting. There were thousands of people sending around 1,000 messages every single day. That's a lot of secret communication for organized crime. Now, for the devices themselves. When we say modified devices, we're not just talking about a fancy app on your regular phone. These were specially altered iPhones. The modification process involved changes to the device's operating system and hardware to enhance security and prevent normal tracking or interception methods. Things like disabling GPS, removing Apple's ability to see it, and implementing advanced encryption at the hardware level. These modified devices were part of a secure communication network. In cybersecurity terms, this means a system designed to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data as it's transmitted between users. Ghost's network used end-to-end encryption, meaning messages were encrypted on the sender's device and could only be decrypted by the intended recipient's device. This makes it extremely difficult for anyone, including any internet service providers, to intercept and read the messages. This level of security doesn't come cheap. It costed $2,350 for a 6-month subscription, and that includes just one of these modified iPhones. It's not the kind of service the average person is going to sign up for to chat with their buddies. The high cost and extreme security measures suggest that Ghost was targeting a very specific clientele, people who had a strong need for secrecy and the resources to pay for it. In a legitimate context, this could include high-level executives, government officials, or journalists working in dangerous areas. However, as we'll see later, these same features made it attractive to less savory characters as well. What's really fascinating is how Ghost spread. They had this network of resellers promoting the service to potential clients. These resellers were carefully vetted and might have had connections in various industries or underground networks. So you've got this perfect storm brewing, a highly secure, nearly untraceable communication system that's slowly but surely spreading across the globe. It's the kind of thing that would make law enforcement sit up and take notice. And as we'll see, that's exactly what happened. Ghost quickly became the go-to tool for various criminal operations. Drug trafficking was a big one. Dealers could arrange shipments and coordinate distribution networks without fear of interception. Money laundering also found a home on Ghost, with criminals able to discuss how to move and clean their illicit funds. And sadly, even violence was planned and orchestrated through these encrypted channels. The Irish criminal underworld, man, they were all over this Ghost platform. In fact, they were some of the earliest and most enthusiastic adopters. We're talking about 4 major Irish gangs that are now under investigation. But the main target is this group called the Family from West Dublin. But it wasn't just the Irish criminals getting in on this Ghost action. Australian organized crime groups were all over it too. You wouldn't believe the scale of operations these guys were running using this encrypted platform. Specifically in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, there were criminal syndicates trafficking and selling a commercial level of drugs, laundering hundreds of millions of dollars, and even organizing hits on people's lives. The scale of these operations is mind-blowing, but I'll get to that soon. This widespread adoption of Ghost by organized crime groups across Australia, Ireland, and even the entire world really highlights how cybercrime and traditional crime are becoming more and more intertwined. It's not just about hackers anymore. It's about how technology is transforming all aspects of criminal activities. Remember when I said law enforcement were to sit up and take notice? Well, they sure did. And things start to take a turn for the worst for Ghost. In March 2022, law enforcement finally catches on. And we're not talking about some local cops here. This is Europol, the big guns of European law enforcement. Europol puts together what they call an operational task force. Now, this isn't your average investigation. We're talking about a massive international effort involving 9 different countries. You've got agents from the United States, Canada, France, Italy, Ireland, Australia, Sweden, and the Netherlands all working together on this. When you're dealing with online platforms like Ghost, the infrastructure can be spread out all over the world. International cooperation is crucial. The users might be in one country, the servers in another, and the people running it somewhere else entirely. It's not like the old days. In this case, the investigation led to some pretty big discoveries. They found out that Ghost had servers in France and Iceland. Now, server location is a big deal in cybercrime. Criminals often choose countries with favorable data protection laws or places where it's harder for law enforcement to get access. But having this international task force means they can coordinate across borders and get to these servers. They also trace the owners of Ghost back to Australia. This is huge because now they've got a physical location and actual people they can target. And on top of that, they found assets linked to the platform in the United States. It was truly a global operation at play. From a technical standpoint, this kind of investigation is incredibly complex. You're dealing with encrypted communications, which means law enforcement can't just intercept and read the messages like they might with a regular phone tap. They have to find ways around the encryption, which might involve exploiting vulnerabilities in the platform, getting access to the servers directly, or finding ways to decrypt the data. Attributing crime in cybersecurity has great challenges. In the online world, it's easy for criminals to hide their real identities. They might use VPNs, proxy servers, or other tools to mask their location and identity. So law enforcement has to get creative if they want to figure out who's really behind the platform. And remember, when you've got a crime that spans multiple countries, who's in charge? Which country's laws apply? These are the kind of questions that make international cybercrime investigations a nightmare, truly. But despite all these challenges, this task force managed to piece together a pretty comprehensive picture of Ghost's operations. They've got the server locations, they've identified the owners, and they've traced assets across multiple countries. It's like they've assembled all the pieces of a giant global puzzle. This is the point where Ghost's days are numbered, even if they don't know it yet. The net is closing in, and it's only a matter of time before law enforcement makes their move. But taking down a platform like this isn't as simple as kicking down a door and making arrests. There's a lot more work to be done, and a lot more technical challenges to overcome. But we'll get to that in the next part of our story. Things are starting to get real juicy. It's March 2024. And the Australian Federal Police were about to pull off something that's straight out of a movie. Seriously, they could probably make a movie about it. They've been working on what they called a technological solution to crack into Ghost. Now, when you hear technological solution, you might think they just found some fancy software or something. But no, what they did was way more clever and sneaky than that. So here's the deal. Ghost was using these modified iPhones, right? The ones that people were paying $2,350 for a 6-month subscription to use. Now the Australian Federal Police figured out a way to hijack the whole system. They found a secret back door into this supposedly unhackable operation. You know how your phone is always bugging you to do updates? Well, Ghost was doing the same thing. They'd regularly push out software updates to keep their system running smooth. But the Australian Federal Police managed to modify these updates. They basically turned Ghost's own security system against itself. When these modified updates got installed on the Ghost devices, it was like the feds had planted a tiny spy in each phone. Suddenly, they could see everything that was happening on these devices in Australia. They were sitting right there, reading over the criminals' shoulders in real time. What the Australian Federal Police did here is called software update exploitation. It's a technique that's been used by hackers for years, but now we're seeing law enforcement turn the tables and use it themselves. Here's how it works. When a device checks for updates, it's usually a pretty trusted process. Your phone or computer assumes that if an update is coming from the official source, it must be safe. But if someone can intercept that process and inject their own code, they can basically take control of the device. In this case, the Australian Federal Police managed to position themselves as that trusted source. They weren't just intercepting communications anymore. They were actively modifying the Ghost platform itself. It's almost as if they weren't just listening at the door, but they'd managed to put on a disguise and walk right into the room and sit down at the table with Jae Jae-yoon Young. This is some seriously advanced stuff. It's not just about breaking encryption anymore. The Australian Federal Police had to understand exactly how Ghost's system worked, figure out how to modify it without being detected, and then distribute these Trojanized updates without raising any red flags. It's the kind of operation that probably took months, if not years, of very careful planning and preparation. Remember, Ghost has been around for almost a decade long. And the results? Man, they were huge. The Aussie feds say they prevented 50 threats to life since gaining access. That's 50 potential murders, kidnappings, or who knows what else that they managed to stop. It really shows how deep this secure messaging app went. This is the kind of thing that's going to have ripple effects throughout the cybercrime world. You can bet that every criminal organization out there is now paranoid about their secure communications. They're probably all wondering, if Ghost wasn't safe, what is? And for law enforcement, this is a game changer. It's a whole new chapter in the war on organized crime. But it also raises some pretty heavy questions about privacy and security. If the police can do this to criminals, what's to stop them from doing it to anyone? In the world of technology, nothing is ever truly unhackable. It's just a matter of who's got the skills and resources to find that hidden weakness. So here's exactly what went down. After a lot of planning, they launched coordinated raids across multiple countries. We're talking simultaneous busts in Australia, Ireland, Canada, and Italy. It was a logistical nightmare, but they pulled it off. The numbers are staggering. In total, they nabbed 51 people, 38 arrests in Australia, 11 in Ireland, 1 in Canada, and 1 in Italy. But the big fish they caught? That was Jae-Yoon Jung, the mastermind behind the whole Ghost platform. This 32-year-old Australian dude from Sydney's south side thought he was untouchable. Well, surprise, surprise, he got a wake-up call when the cops came knocking. He had a kill switch that could wipe the entire system in 30 seconds. So the cops in Australia had to execute this raid as quickly as possible. And they were successful, catching him off guard before he could wipe all the evidence. They bragged and boasted about this in their media interviews. But fair enough, it's pretty impressive stuff. In Ireland alone, they confiscated drugs worth 16 million euros. That's not chump change, my friends. The Irish police, or Gardaí as they're called, snagged 42 ghost devices. They also grabbed 153 other electronic devices. This takedown of criminal infrastructure, this is exactly what law enforcement were after. Dismantling the entire technological ecosystem that allows these criminal networks to operate. Each takedown was a series of coordinated strikes, each with its own cool codename. Operation Kraken Concordia went down in Sydney. They busted a criminal syndicate trafficking cocaine and cannabis. 4 guys got arrested. These dudes were running 2 online groups called Flower Power and Pot Run Operations. Real creative, huh? They moved over 125 kilograms of cannabis in about a year and a half. Then we've got Operation Kraken Teth in New South Wales. This one was heavy stuff. We're talking about an organized crime syndicate manufacturing, importing, and supplying meth and cocaine. They nabbed 4 guys, all in their 20s, from Western Sydney. And get this, they uncovered a secret lab where these guys were cooking meth. It's like Breaking Bad, but without the cool RV. Moving on to Victoria for Operation Kraken Ryloth. 2 guys were planning to import over 7 million illegal cigarettes. You might think, it's just cigarettes, but we're talking about $10 million in evaded taxes. They seized $60,000 in cash and more of those encrypted communication devices. In South Australia, Operation Kraken Veron took down a syndicate involved in drug trafficking and money laundering. They arrested a 33-year-old guy from Henley Beach and seized over $150,000 and about 3 kilograms of meth. Operation Kraken Dathomir was another Victorian bust. This time it was a guy with connections to Albanian organized crime. He was allegedly moving $1.2 million worth of cannabis between Victoria and New South Wales. They seized 25 kilograms of mature cannabis plants. Finally, we've got Operation Kraken Rishi back in Victoria. This syndicate was moving serious weight, about 128 kilograms of meth, cocaine, and MDMA in just 6 months. 3 guys in Melbourne are now facing charges. At the center of it all, Ghost. This seemingly impenetrable communication network that turned out to be not so impenetrable after all. So we've just witnessed this massive takedown of the Ghost platform. But here's the thing. When you cut off the head of a snake, sometimes the body keeps moving. That's exactly what's happening in the aftermath of this operation. Europol noticed something. The criminals didn't just give up on encrypted communications. No, they scattered like roaches when you turn on the lights. They moved to multiple smaller platforms. But that was always inevitable. And don't think for a second that this is over. The investigation is still ongoing and more arrests are expected. It's like peeling an onion. Every layer reveals another one underneath. What we should talk about is the way law enforcement cracked Ghost by modifying those software updates. It's pretty controversial stuff. It's like picking a lock to get into someone's house. Sure, you might catch a criminal, but what about legitimate use of these tools for privacy? There are going to be some heated debates about whether this kind of hacking by law enforcement is actually legal. It's a classic case of security versus privacy, and there's no easy answer. Courts in several countries have already set some precedents for using evidence from encrypted channels. But with technology evolving so fast, these precedents might not cover all the bases. This whole situation is a perfect example of how cybercrime and cybersecurity are constantly evolving. The criminals come up with new tricks, the cops find ways to counter them, and then the cycle starts all over again. As technology keeps advancing, we're going to see more and more of these kinds of cases. The takedown of Ghost isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a whole new chapter in the world of cybersecurity. There's a raging storm of technological improvements coming that's going to make life hell for law enforcement and cyber criminals alike. Artificial intelligence and quantum computing. Think about it. These technologies are going to give both sides superpowers. It's like we're entering a whole new era. Quantum computing might be able to crack every code out there, while also creating unbreakable ones. Depends on who gets there first. Or imagine using AI to teach how to spot criminal or law enforcement activity. Governments around the world are throwing money at research projects to tackle these challenges. But regardless, I want you to just know that as we close this chapter on Ghost, we're opening up a whole new book in cybersecurity. Leave a comment below on your take on encrypted communication and how we can balance this when there's both good and evil.
Use of commercial spyware technology.
Commercial spyware.
You and I are going to dive right into a wild world of commercial spyware. I'm going to peel back the curtain on a secret industry that's been operating in the shadows, and you probably have never heard about it. You know how your phone or computer sometimes needs updates to fix security issues? Well, imagine if someone found a way to break into your device before anyone even knew that hole existed. That's what we call a zero-day vulnerability. It's a security weakness that the defenders don't know about yet, but attackers are already exploiting. Now, here's where it gets crazy. There are actually companies out there, we call them commercial spyware vendors, that make a business out of finding these vulnerabilities and selling ways to exploit them. They're not your typical tech companies. These guys operate in a gray area, selling digital lockpicks to whoever's willing to pay. Now, you might be thinking, how many of these companies are out there? Well, these detectives said they're actively tracking about 40 commercial spyware vendors. Some of these are more sophisticated than others, and some try to stay out of the public eye more than others. But they're all in the same business, finding ways to break into our online lives. This isn't just about some tech companies doing shady stuff. This is about a whole industry that's grown around the idea of digital surveillance. And as we'll see, the implications of this go way beyond just losing your Facebook password. We're talking about tools that can be used to spy on journalists, activists, and even government officials. So, look no further, because I'm about to take you on a deep dive into the world of cyber mercenaries. It's a story of high-tech espionage, international intrigue, and the ongoing battle for privacy on the internet. Let's dive deeper into this rabbit hole of commercial spyware. I'm about to blow your mind. In 2023, Google's Threat Analysis Group discovered 25 of these zero-day vulnerabilities. But guess what? 20 of them, yeah. 80% of the ones the Threat Analysis Group found were linked to commercial spyware vendors. These aren't just random hackers in basements. These are companies making a business out of finding and exploiting these exploits for their spyware tactics. Now, let me introduce you to some of the big players in this game. First up, we've got the Intellexa Alliance. These guys started in Cyprus, but now they're based in Greece. They bring together all different players in the industry with their complex network of companies. Then there's NSO Group, based in Israel. These guys are like the celebrities of the spyware world. They provide what they call access as a service. Basically, they're selling the keys to anyone's personal life for whoever's willing to pay. We've also got NEG Group, a smaller outfit from Italy that's been around since 2013. And then there's Veriston from Spain, who claim they're all about tailor-made information security solutions. But let's be real, when we're talking about commercial spyware, security is a pretty loose term. This isn't just some niche industry. These companies are operating worldwide, selling tools that can break into your phone or computer without you ever knowing. And the scariest part? They're just getting started. Take Tal Dillian, a notorious figure and the man behind Intellexa. In 2019, he was rolling around in a van that's packed to the brim with spyware tools. I'm talking about a mobile hacking command center. This guy's not messing around. He's offering cops a whole arsenal of cyber weapons. We're talking Android hacking tools, facial recognition tech that can spot you anywhere, gear that can listen in on your calls, and even stuff that can locate every phone in an entire country in minutes. It's like something out of a spy movie, but it's real. Now, Dillian didn't just appear out of nowhere. He set up shop in Cyprus back in 2008. Why Cyprus? Well, it turns out this little island in the Mediterranean had become a hotspot for cyber surveillance companies. The place had barely any rules for overseeing these kinds of operations. It was like the Wild West, but for spyware. But here's where it gets really interesting. Dillian's an Israeli guy, right? And in Israel, if you want to sell this kind of tech, you need to get the green light from the Defense Ministry. They're pretty strict about it, worried about national security and all that. But Cyprus? They didn't care. So Dillian could sell his stuff without jumping through all those hoops. At the same time, he could hop back to Israel whenever he wanted to recruit more hackers. The company is primarily all employees from Israeli ex-military and intelligence. He was scooping up these guys as soon as they finished their service. Talk about brain drain, right? Now I'll show you what Dillian's company, Intellexa, was cooking up. Their main product was this nasty piece of work called Predator. This spyware is no joke. Once it's on your phone, it can read your messages, listen to your calls, look at your photos, and even turn on your microphone without you knowing. It will track you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without you knowing a damn thing. But how does this stuff get on your phone in the first place? Well, they've got a few tricks up their sleeve. Sometimes they'll send you a sneaky SMS link. One click, and you're infected. Other times they use what we call zero-click exploits. That means you don't have to do anything at all. The spyware can get in just by sending you a message or a call. They can also attack through Wi-Fi networks or by tricking you into downloading malicious apps. It's scary stuff, man. And the worst part, most people have no idea this is even possible. Let me tell you about the Larnaca International Airport scandal. This is some next-level stuff. In 2019, travelers at this airport in Cyprus were probably psyched about the new, super-fast Wi-Fi. But there was something much more sinister going on here. That Wi-Fi was stealing their personal information. The company that set it up, yeah, you guessed it, connected to Intellexa, put in 3 access points that were swiping data from over 9 million mobile devices. 9 million! That's like the population of New York City, all getting their data stolen while they're waiting for their flights. When you're dealing with spyware, it's not always about sneaking something onto your phone. Sometimes, it's about compromising the networks you connect to. In this case, they set up what we call a man-in-the-middle attack. Basically, they put themselves between you and the internet, so everything you send or receive goes through them first. It's like if someone was opening all your mail before it got to you, reading it, then sealing it back up and sending it on its way. After this airport fiasco blew up in their faces and Alexa had to pack up and move to Greece, you'd think they'd lay low for a while, right? Nope, they jump right into another scandal. This time their predator spyware, yeah, the one I told you about earlier, gets found on the phones of a big-shot Greek journalist and an opposition politician. If you're an important person and you find out that everything on your phone is being watched, being tracked in real time, then this isn't just about privacy. This kind of spying can alter the fabric of our reality in the wrong hands. Unsurprisingly, when this news broke, it caused a huge uproar. We're talking parliamentary investigations, public outrage, the works. It just goes to show, when you're playing with fire in the cyber world, you're bound to get burned. This is where it gets personal, and frankly, pretty scary. The people in the crosshairs of these spyware attacks. We're talking about journalists trying to uncover the truth, human rights defenders fighting for justice, dissidents speaking out against oppressive regimes, even politicians. These are the high-risk users that spyware typically targets. Let me tell you, the fear is real. These people know the risks, but they keep fighting because they believe in what they're doing. It's both inspiring and heartbreaking at the same time. Even though spyware might only target a small number of people directly, its impact spreads way beyond that. It's like dropping a stone in a pond. The ripples affect everything around it. Think about it. What does that do to our society? This software is the end game. It's when we all lose, whether we're directly targeted or not. So next time you hear about spyware, remember, it's not just some abstract tech issue. It's about real people, real lives, and the kind of society we want to live in. This stuff might seem far removed from your daily life, but trust me, its effects reach further than you might think. By now, you must be pretty eager to learn how this spyware actually works. I'm talking about the real technical stuff. First off, you gotta understand that as our phones and computers have gotten smarter and more secure, people have had to get craftier. They can't just use one simple trick anymore. Now, they're using what we call exploit chains. It's like a series of lockpicks, each one designed to get past a different security measure. Commercial spyware vendors use these 0 days, stringing them together. It's not just one vulnerability they're exploiting, but a series of them. They might start with a remote code execution exploit, which lets them run malicious code on your device from afar. Then they could use a sandbox escape exploit to break out of the protective environment that's supposed to contain potentially harmful code. Finally, they might use a privilege escalation exploit to gain higher-level access to your system. It's like having the skill to pick a lock, disable the alarm, and crack the safe. Now let's talk about Intellex's crown jewel, the Predator spyware. This thing is nasty, and it's got a component called Alien that's particularly sneaky. Alien does something called hooking into a function within a part of your Android phone. This function is like the phone's internal communication system. By hooking into it, Alien can eavesdrop on everything happening in your phone and even talk to other parts of itself. But it gets worse. Alien can also add its own certificates to your phone's trusted list. It's like the spyware giving itself a fake ID that your phone automatically trusts. This lets it do all sorts of nasty stuff without setting off any alarms. And get this, Alien is smart enough to check what kind of phone you have. It's got a list of major manufacturers like Samsung, Huawei, Oppo, and Xiaomi, and it adjusts its tactics based on which one you're using. Now you might be wondering, how much does something like this cost? Well, hold on to your hat. For a cool 8 million euros, that's about 8.7 million US dollars. A customer can buy the ability to use a one-click exploit chain. This lets them install spyware on both Android and iOS devices, and they can run it on 10 different targets at the same time. If you can unlock any phone in the world, then you bet there are governments and organizations out there willing to pay this kind of money for these tools. This thing has spread like wildfire, popping up in at least 25 countries around the globe. Alexa isn't just selling this stuff to your average Joe looking to spy on his ex. No, it's being sold to some pretty interesting figures. I'm talking about a powerful paramilitary group in Sudan, the Egyptian intelligence services, and even the Vietnamese government. The Vietnamese government actually tried to use this tech to hack the phones of US officials. Can you believe that? But in a strange turn of events, there's even more to worry about. You know those APT groups we always talk about? Well, there's this group called APT-29. They're state-sponsored, working for the Russian government. These guys have been caught using the same iOS and Android exploits that companies like Alexa created. They were taking these cyber weapons and modifying them, supercharging them. Let me give you an example. In November 2023, APT-29 pulled off this crazy hack. They compromised these Mongolian government websites. We're talking about the Foreign Affairs Ministry and the cabinet. They used what's called a watering hole tactic. Basically, they infected these legitimate websites, knowing that government officials would visit them. It's like poisoning a water source that you know your target will drink from. Once they compromised these sites, they added this malicious thing called an iframe. It's like a hidden window on the website that delivers an exploit. In this case, it was targeting a specific vulnerability, CVE 2023-41993. This exploit was designed to attack vulnerabilities in iOS WebKit and Google Chrome. Now, here's the million-dollar question. How the hell did APT-29 get their hands on these exploits? These were supposed to be top-secret tools, known only to companies like NSO Group and Alexa. It's not like these Russian hackers just stumbled upon this stuff or created it themselves. The chances of that are slim to none. So what are the possibilities? Maybe APT-29 hacked the spyware vendors themselves. Or perhaps they've got some insiders in these companies. You know, someone who can be bought for the right price. There's even a chance they're collaborating directly or through some middleman. Another theory is that they bought these exploits from a vulnerability broker. These are shady characters who deal in zero-day vulnerabilities, selling them to the highest bidder. It's possible these brokers sold the same exploits to surveillance companies and then turned around and sold them to APT-29. It doesn't really matter how they got them. The fact is, they did. And that's scary as hell. It shows how these cyber weapons can spread from supposedly legitimate companies to state-sponsored hacking groups. This is why it's so crucial to address these zero-day vulnerabilities as soon as they're discovered. It means there's a ticking time bomb out there, and it needs to be fixed ASAP. The average person might not realize how urgent this is, but trust me, in the world of cybersecurity, it's really, really bad. These exploits in the wrong hands can cause chaos on a global scale. We're talking about national security, international relations, and the privacy of millions of people. Think about it. Your phone, the one you're probably holding right now, could potentially be compromised by tools originally designed by companies operating legally in countries that turn a blind eye to it. And now those same tools are being used by government and state-sponsored hackers to target other countries and their politicians. It's a crazy world we're living in, man. This is why cybersecurity isn't just some nerdy tech issue. It's a major geopolitical concern. These cyber weapons are becoming just as important as traditional military hardware. Countries are stockpiling zero-day exploits like they used to stockpile missiles. And unlike physical weapons, these cyber tools can be copied and spread almost instantly. Once they're out there, it's incredibly hard to control who gets their hands on them. It's like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube. The United States government has been watching all this spyware stuff go down, right? And they're thinking, okay, enough is enough. In 2023 and 2024, they dropped the hammer. They slapped sanctions on Intellexa. Yeah, that whole spyware consortium we've been talking about. But they didn't stop there. They went after the big fish, the leaders of this operation, Tal Dillian and his wife, Sarah Hamu. Now, when I say sanctions, I'm not talking about a slap on the wrist. This is serious business. It means that no U.S. company or individual can do any kind of business with them. Can't send them money, can't provide them with any kind of support, technological, material, whatever. It's like they've been put in a financial and technological timeout. These sanctions aren't just about punishing Intellexa and its leaders. They're sending a message to the whole industry. It's like the U.S. is saying, we see what you're doing, and we're not going to stand for it. And it's not just the U.S. that's taking action. There's this growing movement around the world. People are waking up to the dangers of this spyware stuff. It's like a snowball effect. You've got communities, activists, tech experts, all kinds of people raising awareness about what's going on. This awareness is building momentum. It's pushing governments and international organizations to start thinking about how to deal with this on a global scale. We're talking about potential new laws and international agreements. Are we cool with governments and companies having the power to spy on anyone they want, however they want? That's the question people are starting to ask. And apparently, it's not an easy question to answer. On one hand, you've got governments saying they need these tools to fight crime and terrorism. On the other hand, people like you and I are worried about our privacy and the potential for abuse. It's like we're at a turning point. The question is, where do we go from here? How do we balance security and privacy? How do we make sure these powerful tools don't end up in the wrong hands? I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you one thing. This is a conversation we all need to be part of. Because at the end of the day, it's our data, our privacy, our lives that are on the line. So, yeah, while there are definitely some scary things happening in the world of cybersecurity, it's good to know that there are also some serious efforts being made to protect us. And if you want to stay in the loop with these relatively unknown cyber incidents that are going on in our world, consider subscribing to the channel. The next time you get one of those annoying pop-ups telling you to update your software or scan your device, maybe think twice before clicking "Remind me later." Those updates and scans might just be Predator or Pegasus.